Greetings, brothers and sisters. So around, I don't know what it was, probably noon, like 1 o'clock maybe. I mean, it must have been earlier than that even. That JoJo Magoo, they said that JoJo Magoo was going to make a statement. It came out that he was sticking to the August 31st deadline to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. And the media and political figures, both Democrats and Republicans, went off about this, right? Not believing that he was going to get everybody out on time, Americans and whoever else. And so the Washington Post posted a link on YouTube saying that they were, waiting for Joe Biden to come out and give a speech. And it said on CNN, they kept on saying, he'll be out any minute, he'll be out any minute, went on for hours. You can see there, it says 5 hours and 32 minutes. That's how long. He only talks for about 20 minutes here. And I'm going to show you his press conference. But he was in the back room. They were in the White House trying to figure out how to spin this mess that they got themselves into because people weren't having it, right? And so that I want to preface that before I want to preface this press conference that it took them 5 hours to come up with this crap that he's going to talk about here. Like, it's not great. It's just, I mean, the whole thing's just ridiculous. And JoJo Magoo has, they're bailing on JoJo Magoo. And I'll get into that more as we go through the press conference. But there was another development that happened. And so I even just saw Nancy Pelosi having to deal with questions about this. A Dem and a Republican representatives make secret Afghanistan trip angering U.S. officials. And so 2 members of Congress decided to go to see for themselves, Senator Moulton and Peter Meyer or something, infuriated White House and Pentagon and State Department officials who accused them of using vital resources in the midst of a chaotic American withdrawal. And what they ended up finding out was this. This is their take on it. They said they originally came to Afghanistan to push the president to extend the August 31st deadline, but found that after talking with commanders on the ground and seeing the situation here, it's obvious that because we started the evacuation so late, that no matter what we do, we won't get everyone out even by September 11th. So Biden goes on to brag about getting 22,000 people out in one day, record. I don't know if he bragged about it. I saw it somewhere else. But they know how many people they can fly out of there, how many planes they have, how many people can sit on a plane, how many, it's just like an average airport. Like, the capacity. At some point it becomes, all right, what's our capacity to get everything and everybody out of here? And if they're flying all night and whatever it is, planes are coming in, planes are leaving, they had to give up some of the airports to the Taliban because they're now just in one small area, like the Taliban surrounding them, right? And Biden has like another threat that he just, another group that he's talking about that just comes out of nowhere. He talks about this in the press conference, so it's like the forces of darkness are closing in, like if this is a movie. And they have so much time to get everybody on planes and out of there before this powder keg erupts into something else, right? And so that's what they're looking at. And they know how many people they have to get out. I mean, they don't even, maybe they don't even know because they don't have a head count of all the Americans, in terms of that. But all the other people, they know how many people are there, rough estimate, and how many people they're getting in and out of flying out of the airport every day. And so they know they're not getting everyone out by August 31st. So I don't know, like they're not playing this right at all, right? And once you lock into dates, then there's the failure of the date. Biden has set a bunch of dates, like he had a date in July of something that didn't happen as well, that such and such is going to happen by such and such a date. And when you don't deliver, that's like a big deal. Like they love to lock politicians into dates and promises. And so what he's done is made this thing into some sort of a nightmare, right? where they're not either going to get everybody out or there's going to be more military conflict with the Taliban and some other groups that I don't know what's happening there. We'll listen to him describe that. It's kind of laughable. That's coming up. And so it's a complete disaster for Biden. There's no, way this thing gets any better, right? There's no win here. Like this, you can't salvage a win out of this thing. And the media is just going to cover the bad stuff, even the MSNBC and CNN. They're not going to cover the wins, which is coming as a surprise to Biden, who thought that the media was in his pocket. That's part of the problem here. So let's go to the press conference with this, with all this knowledge, and watch JoJo Magoo. Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I've been watching this for about, on and off. I've been clicking on this to see if JoJo was finally going to show up, and then they made some headway. They at least started showing us a room for a little bit. There's some room with some big locks on the door, some presidential stuff. Harry Truman riding a horse. Just good old time. Where's JoJo, though? There's crisis in Afghanistan, JoJo. Where are you, buddy? Are you going to come out of this door or this door? Very important. What's going on back there? Are they, giving him an intravenous, giving him some steroids here? Microphone's going up. Some action. There's something stirring in there. I think they can start. They're smelling Magoo, maybe. There's a dude right there. Some movement. His head's coming. You see the part of his head coming. There he comes. There's Magoo. There he goes. All right, what do you got, Magoo? Come on in. All right, first of all, Magoo, are you going to take that mask off? Yes, take it off. There he goes.
Before I update you,
he's talking here
on the meeting that I had with leaders of the G7 earlier today, I want to say a word about the progress we're making on the Build Back Better.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. We're all interested in the Build Back Better. He's got this Build Back Better thing. He's been dodging this press conference for 5 hours. And let's hear him talk about what a great job he's doing with the Build Back Better economic proposal he has, his economic agenda. We're here to watch you take a shellacking on Afghanistan, right? But he's going to start off with the Build Back Better. It's wonderful. The Build Back Better. It just rolls off your tongue. The 3 Bs. Build Back Better.
Agenda here at home. I just got off the telephone with the leaders in the House. Today, the House of Representatives has taken a significant step toward making a historic investment that's going to transform America, cut taxes for working families, and position the American economy for long-term growth.
Wow, I came here to watch you fumble around with Afghanistan, but now I hear about the Build Back Better movement and how we're going to have sustainable economic growth for years to come. It's like a ray of sunshine. I forgot why I was here in the first place. Let me hear more about this Build Back Better movement.
When I became president, it was clear that we had to confront an immediate economic crisis, the most significant recession we've had since the president.
And what caused that, JoJo? Can we remember what caused that recession?
Depression, or at least since Johnson. But we weren't going to. But that wasn't going to be enough. We also had to make some long-term investments in Americans and America itself. The first thing we did was to write and pass the American Rescue Plan,
which was printing money, which involved just printing money and devaluing the currency, which is, happening. Like that was a good plan, well thought out plan. Let's just print our way out of this economic collapse.
And it's working. Our economy has added 4 million jobs in my first 6 months in office. Economic growth is up to the fastest it's been, the fastest rate in 40 years, and unemployment is coming down.
All great news. Wow, we're doing great, and you're doing great. Don't listen to those people who are talking about you being some doddering old senile fool. You're kicking ass on the economic front, with all this hyperinflation and more bailouts and tax cuts.
Right now, our economic growth is leading the world's advanced economies. But to win the future, we need to take the next step. Today, the House of Representatives did just that. Today's vote in the House allowed them to consider my Build Back Better agenda, a broad framework to make housing more affordable, bring down the cost of prescription drugs by giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for drugs, make elder care more affordable, provide 2 years of free universal high-quality pre-K.
So like I said, sometime around, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock yesterday morning, it came out that he was meeting with the G7, and they gave a lame statement that Biden wasn't going to change his 1 week withdrawal timeline, that he was going to get everybody out and, all the soldiers would be out in 1 week, and whoever was left, Americans or Afghanis who were, whatever, were going to be at the mercy of the Taliban, Mr. Taliban. So, that happened. And there was an outrage across the, news world, media world, everyone descending on this, right? Because it was, and the reasoning for it is that the Taliban are getting pissy over there. And they're saying, you got to get out by this date. And so whatever cooperation they're getting from the Taliban will end if they extend, and there could be military conflict. And if the Taliban start, which would be stupid on their part, but we don't even know how smart Mr. Taliban is. And so if that ends up descending into chaos, right, and more war, does he bring more troops back in and they get bogged down in Afghanistan? They have to retake areas and whatever it is, right? I mean, that's not an option. So it would be basically the Taliban killing American soldiers and Americans as we flee the country, and that the optics of that would be, it would be one of the worst things that we've seen for America. Just America running back to, the American military running back to America with their tail between their legs because of JoJo's decision. And so he's boxed into a corner. The Taliban are, kind of running the show there, calling the shots, and they're like, get out by the 31st. And all the other people are like, we can't do that, JoJo, right? And so he had 5 hours to sort of, turn this into something. And this is what he came up with. Let me talk about my crappy economic plan, which is just going to lead to hyperinflation because of the massive bailouts and tax cuts, right? And so this is JoJo's administration. And now that the media, one thing JoJo didn't count on with this Afghanistan thing, because he knew it was going to suck. They knew this was going to happen. They knew it was going to be a mess. I mean, everyone who had any knowledge of this knew it was going to be a mess. Because, on a spiritual level, I talk about this in terms of the material level, but on the spiritual level, there was a price to pay for these lies and these illegal wars that cause so much damage to other people's lives in other countries. America just invading countries and changing their political system and imposing its will, and it doesn't work. We've seen this. This system doesn't work. I've said it over and over again. We've seen it for years. Regime change doesn't work. Nation building doesn't work. It has to come from the people themselves. And so this was going to happen. They knew it was going to happen. But JoJo counted on the media covering for him, which they've been doing since, maybe he's not even aware of it. He hasn't gotten any real media from the last 3 years of running for president. They've hid him away, protected him. But something has happened that CNN and MSNBC aren't talking about Trump anymore. They still, once in a while try to blame something on Trump, but they're not, their content isn't revolving around Trump because they're losing viewers. People don't want to hear about Trump anymore. And so CNN had to move on. I want to get to that, maybe another video. Just the ghoulishness over at CNN. And MSNBC is, worse or just as bad in a different way. But they're not talking about Trump anymore. And so now, since they're negative, the media is always negative, it's not positive. So they don't want to hear about your economic plan, right? They want, they want fresh meat of this Afghanistan thing. It's the kind of drama that people are tuning into. And so, you like the winds have shifted, and JoJo Magoo is like, doesn't have anything, right? He's not a good leader. He's not a good speaker. And so he's trying to sell this Build Back Better turd, right?
And 2 years of free community college.
All these great giveaways. Who's going to pay for this, JoJo? Do you have somebody who's going to pay for this? The Taliban? Is Mr. Taliban going to pay?
Provide clean energy tax credits. Continue to give the middle-class families the well-deserved tax cut for daycare and health care that they deserve.
Exactly. Just stop taxing people. I think that's a good idea. Let's just get rid of taxes altogether. Who needs them? Right? Just print money.
Allowing a lot of women to get back to work primarily. And provide significant monthly tax cuts for working families with children through the child care tax credit. These investments are going to lower out-of-pocket expenses for families and not just give them a little more breathing room. In addition, we're going to make long overdue, much-needed investments in basic, hard infrastructure of this nation.
Look at the face right here. Look at Magoo go.
This is an area where we have broad bipartisan agreement to invest in our antiquated roads, highways, bridges, transit, drinking water systems, broadband, clean energy, environmental cleanup, and making infrastructure more resilient to the climate crisis.
You guys had 4 hours, and this is what you came up with? You're going to lead with this? Nobody cares, JoJo.
And so much more. And this is all paid for. Instead of giving every break in the world to corporations and CEOs, by the way, 55 of our largest companies in America paid $0 in federal taxes on more than $40 billion in profit last year.
Okay, so the problem here is I don't like corporations any more than anybody else, probably less so. And I don't like, the ultra-wealthy people. But we've seen this before. When you tax them, they take their corporations elsewhere. They don't care where their corporations are. They can still service and sell to America, but they'll take their other operations overseas, and then there won't be corporations and jobs here. And we've seen this happen because they don't want to pay taxes and they can get a better deal somewhere else. And when you're talking about the ultra-wealthy, he's not talking about the billionaires and the trillionaires who have foundations and ways to hide their wealth and keep from paying taxes. He's talking about, local rich people who end up not wanting to make as much money because they're paying 60% of their income in taxes. In some of these states, high tax states like New York and California, people will be moving out of the state because they're going to be paying 70% of their income in taxes. And so if you're going to, take money from people, it's not going to be the ultra wealthy that you say it is, because they'll just move elsewhere and find ways, loopholes to hide their money. It's going to be the semi-wealthy people giving money away to people who aren't contributing in their minds, right? And so this just leads to resentment. But, enough about this. We know the economy's effed. Let's find out about Afghanistan, shall we?
We can ask corporations and the very wealthy just to pay their fair share. They can still be very wealthy. They can still make a lot of money, but just begin to pay their fair share. So we can invest in making our country stronger and more competitive, create jobs and raise wages, and lift up the standard of living for everyone.
See, fair share means 45%, and that's just federal taxes. Then you have state taxes as well, and then sales tax and all these other tax. And so when people are paying more than 50%, like in some cases in California with state taxes and things like that, it's like 67, 68%, right, of their income people have to pay, rich people. And these people are, looking at the money being given away by JoJo to people who, if you're a Republican and you're looking at all these people who, flooded the ballot box for JoJo Magoo in these, in liberal sort of cities, so city, dwelling people who are not paying taxes at all, but are getting basically, free money from the government, and your taxes have just gone up substantially. And it's like, all right, well, then why make money, right? Because they're going to take it away from you. The majority of the money you're going to make, they're taking it away from you. So that's not fair share, right? 45% isn't fair share. The government shouldn't be entitled to 40% of your earnings. Like, those are loan shark, and that's just the federal government, right? Those are loan shark rates. Those are criminal rates.
But let me now turn to Afghanistan.
Now, this is after 5 hours. Like, after 5 hours of that, that sales pitch for his crappy economic plan, when it's just going to devalue the dollar. And now he's finally getting around to talking about this Afghanistan debacle.
I've met this morning with my counterparts in the G7, as well as heads of the United Nations, NATO, and the European Union. I express my thanks for the solidarity we have seen as we've stood up an unprecedented global effort. I updated our partners on the significant progress we made.
Boom, partners. Is your partner Satan? Because you're going full. He's reaching for his eye here. Some Illuminati deliverance boy freaking thing going on here.
In the past 10 days. As of this afternoon, we've helped evacuate 70,700 people just since August the 14th, 75,900 people since the end of July. Just in the past 12 hours, another 19 U.S. military flights, 18 C-17s and 1 C-130 carrying approximately 6,400 evacuees.
Wow, that's a lot of evacuees, 6,000 of them.
And 31 coalition flights carrying
6 and 3. That's a lot of 31 coalitions and 6,000 people.
Carrying 5,600 people have left Kabul just in the last 12 hours. A total of 50 more flights, 12,000 more people since I updated you this morning.
Let's just go do it. Like, this tells every number of every person. Why don't you read their names off? All right, you locked into a date, right? Let's find out about that. Like, can we just get to that? No one gives a shit about your economic plan. I mean, on another day, maybe. Let's just find out about your decision that you're taking an absolute beating on from even Democrats.
These numbers are a testament to the efforts of our brave service women and men, to our diplomats on the ground in Kabul, and to our allies still standing with us. And we had a productive discussion. There was strong agreement among the leaders about the evacuation mission underway, as well as the need to coordinate our approach to Afghanistan as we move forward. First, on evacuation, we agreed that we will continue to our close cooperation to get people out as efficiently and safely as possible. We are currently on a pace to finish by August the 31st.
No, you're not, right? Like, we know he's not. We know they're not. And so when you do this, when you lock yourself into a date that you can't meet, you make a promise you can't deliver on, when you're already bailing water out of the boat, right? The ship be sinking. It doesn't matter how great you're doing. Like, they're setting records in terms of bringing people out of a war, right? In terms of, it's probably a wonderful effort, right? Just in terms of their ability to get so many people out of Afghanistan so fast. Like, the American military is efficient in this way. It's a fighting machine, a honed fighting machine. But that doesn't matter because nobody gives a shit about that, right? At this point. They're locked into this date and what the Taliban are going to do. And so the clock is ticking on JoJo because the Taliban are collapsing in on him. This is, one level of the problem. And the media in America is like, you're screwing this thing up. And now he's promised something he can't deliver. He just said a lie. They're not on pace to get everyone out by the 31st. So you're going to leave Americans behind. That's a disaster. Are you going to provoke a, military conflict with the Taliban? That's a disaster. And so there's no winning strategy here. Like I said, there's no way to salvage this as a win. It's just, how bad is it going to get? Like, is something going to happen that people will move on? or is they going to be covering this in a month or two? And all the coverage is going to be negative. There's no, wow, you guys did a great job. Like, it's already, they've already lost on this thing. This is a loss. There's no way to make yourself look good here. And the media has turned on him. I mean, even the liberal media to some extent.
The sooner we can finish, the better.
Can we get them all out by tomorrow? Look at him. He's just not a well person here. So we're sticking to that date. Like, let's talk about that.
Each day of operations brings added risk to our troops. But the completion by August 31st depends upon the Taliban continuing to cooperate and allow access to the airport for those who we're transporting out and no disruptions to our operations. In addition, I've asked the Pentagon and the State Department for contingency plans to adjust the timetable.
Because their plans have been wonderful up to this point. So a contingency plan for them should be, a slam dunk.
Should that become necessary. I'm determined to ensure that we complete our mission, this mission. I'm also mindful of the increasing risks that I've been briefed on. And
he's been briefed on it. He stumbled there for a second, but now he's come back.
Need to factor those risks in. They're real and significant challenges that we also...
They're real. They're not imaginary. These are real risks. He's got real risks here. These aren't made-up risks.
Have to take into consideration. The longer we stay, starting with the acute and growing risk of an attack by a terrorist group known as ISIS-K.
ISIS-K? Did you say ISIS-K? It's like ISIS with special K. They're special. These guys must be badasses. They're ISIS-K.
An ISIS affiliate in Afghanistan, which is a sworn enemy of the Taliban as well.
Well, they must be badasses. They don't even get along with Mr. Taliban. And so, what are we doing here? There's a new thing now all of a sudden that he's bringing out. I mean, what is this? As far as I understand, ISIS was created out of the elite Republican Guard in Iraq when they just disappeared. When America invaded, they folded into the population, and then they became, like a CIA asset that was used in Syria and other places, right, in Iraq. And so, then Trump stopped ordering them to do things, and then, we are where we are now. But now there's something going on in Afghanistan. It's like he just introduced a new character into a superhero drama, like you thought the Taliban was badass, but look out for ISIS-K.
Every day we're on the ground is another day we know that ISIS-K is seeking to target the airport.
What was this ISIS-K, and why haven't I heard about them before?
And attack both U.S. and allied forces and innocent civilians.
Did you guys just think up ISIS-K in the last 4 hours? When you were struggling to come up with something?
Additionally, thus far, the Taliban have been taking steps to work with us so we can get our people out.
But, they have to fight off the ISIS-K at the same time.
But it's a tenuous situation. We're already had some gunfighting break out. We run a serious risk of it breaking down as time goes on. Second, the G7 leaders and the leaders of the EU, NATO, and the UN all agreed that we will stand united in our approach to the Taliban.
Yeah, united effort, but America's going to do all the fighting, right? This is an America, Come on, bro. Just move on here.
We agreed the legitimacy of any future government depends on the approach it now takes to uphold international obligations, including to prevent Afghanistan from being used as a base for terrorism.
So this new ISIS-K that you just talked about, which is got a stronghold in Afghanistan, is a sworn enemy of Mr. Taliban, and wouldn't that, wouldn't that be what you're just talking about?
And we agreed that none of us are going to take the Taliban's word for it.
You're not going to take their word. You're not trusting Mr. Taliban to tally your banana. You're going to bring your own scales. Because daylight come and JoJo want to go home.
We'll judge them by their actions, and we'll stay in close coordination on any steps that we take moving forward in response to the Taliban's behavior. At the same time, we renewed our humanitarian commitment to the Afghan people and supported a proposal by the Secretary General Guterres of the United Nations-led international response with unfettered humanitarian access in Afghanistan. Third, we talked about our mutual obligation to support refugees and evacuees currently fleeing Afghanistan.
So the only change that he put out here, I mean, this whole thing we just watched, it's just, you know, a lot of it's funny. All of it's funny, I guess, to some extent. And, you know, all of it's incompetent. You know, but the only thing that he changed here is he said that they're creating contingencies at the Pentagon for if they don't get everybody out, which they're not going to. And so the contingencies are based in what I've said earlier, either running the risk of leaving people behind, which is unthinkable, because he didn't say we're going to get everybody out. Like the one promise he didn't make here was we're getting everybody out. Like that's what he said. We're going to get everybody out, no matter what. Leave no man behind. You know? And so that's going to provoke people because he didn't really say that. And it's predicated on the cooperation of the Taliban. The Taliban own Afghanistan right now, and America's done. Like, we're not going back in, and the Taliban know it. And so his whole, you know, policy here is based in whether the Taliban want economic support and to be recognized as a legitimate government by the international community. That's all he has, that they will, you know, not want to be isolated. And so when they, you know, he said that they want American diplomats to stay there, and so they want to be recognized as a legitimate government, even with the human rights abuses and things. And so he's boxed into a crappy corner here. Because if the Taliban realize, hey, they're not going to ever recognize us anyway, why don't we, you know, slap some hurting on them as they leave, and they could destroy JoJo and his presidency. Because how bad this thing gets, you know, is, and again, I don't know, because it's everything so partisan. I mean, JoJo's only lost a point, you know, even with the media turning on him. I mean, MSNBC and CNN, and I've talked about that. Nobody watches the news anymore. So it doesn't matter if the media turns on him. Very few people are even aware of the bare basic facts here. Someone says, yeah, this is what's going on in Afghanistan. They get one of their friends' subjective views because people are so lost and clueless that they don't know what's going on. They don't have any grasp of the political realities. And so JoJo's and the people who are fans of Magoo aren't going to be looking for negative things about him. And they just are glad Trump is gone. And so that's why he has a 49% approval rating, even after just 6 months of a nightmare presidency. And very few people understand that when you give out this bailout money, and people are getting money, like they're getting paid, right? People are getting paid not to work and paid not to grow food. And there's this bailout money going around. I mean, he dumped trillions of dollars into the economy after Trump did. And so it's been like $6 trillion of bailout money, and the promise of infrastructure money coming down the pipe, right? And that money's going to be dumped into the economy, and people are going to get paid, right? So people are happy about that. But it, you know, there's a bill, there's a price tag for it, and just like there's a price tag for these bogus wars in Afghanistan. And so, you know, the clock is ticking because JoJo. You know, they've removed Trump as the central figure. Trump is no longer, and they'll try to bring him back. But even Trumpers are, you know, they've lost interest in Trump. Like Trump bailed on his followers after the January 6th thing. He sold them out, brought them, riled them up, sent them down to, you know, I mean, he just walked right into it. He just stepped right into the trap. And he walked those, he told them to march down and let Congress hear about it, and, you know, the thing happened, and then Trump bailed on the people. He didn't, you know, take any responsibility for his rhetoric and telling them to, riling them up and sending them down to whatever, you know, debacle happened there. And so Trump, you know, will bail on you, right? I mean, he'll bail on his supporters because he's, you know, Trump. And so people aren't as psyched about Trump as they used to be. I mean, he's, you know, still a popular figure. He still has a very fervent fan base, but not like it was before. And, you know, the rest of the Trump haters just are done with Trump. They don't want to hear about him anymore. And now there's real crises going on. And so they're looking at JoJo to be a president. They can't hide JoJo behind, well, he at least he's not Trump, or he's better than Trump anymore. And the mainstream media, and I'm going to get into this, I'm going to talk about how unlikable, you know, the annoying people have sort of won. The CNN people are. I had a realization last night. So I got another thing. I'll do that in a separate video maybe today. But it goes along with what I'm saying here. It's, you know, it's part of this idea that the news media is just about evil. All they do is cover evil. They cover mistakes. They cover failure. How much of the news is actually positive and affirming? And you look at almost everything that happens. Like when you watch a movie, there is the conflict and building towards the conflict and the development of the villain and the problem, right? Whatever the negativity, development of the drama. And so that is 80 to 90% of the movie. And then the last 10 minutes of it is like, it's, you know, they start off maybe happy and then there's a problem. 10 minutes of, okay, let's introduce the characters and let's show you what's going on in their lives, and they're happy and they're functioning and whatever. And then the trauma sets in. And if it's an action movie, it's, you know, some violent, you know, criminal, whatever it is, element, right? So the problem is introduced. But if it's a drama, it's something else. If it's a comedy, it's something else. But it's something that stresses you out, right? So you're stressed out. Oh, how are we going to resolve this problem? You know, whatever it is. And it's usually evil. Like they're developing evil as the central point of the movie or TV show. And then there's the resolution at the end, the happily ever after. But that's like you're pretty much tuned out by that point. And that's how the news media is as well. All they talk about is all these problems, right? You get really stressed out if you watch the news because it's completely negative. It's completely, you know, filled with drama, and they're always looking for mistakes. And, you know, now that Trump isn't there, they're going to have to turn that on Joe Biden. And Joe Biden can't stand up to that, right? He's not somebody who could stand up to that kind of scrutiny because he's just so old, and, you know, he's always been a screw-up. Like he was a screw-up, you know, he was never presidential material. I mean, in terms of being a hero president. Like he could be a screw-up president. He could be a, you know, a bad president, but he never had the, you know, star power to be a hero president. They're trying to make him that only by contrasting him with Trump. But that contrast is now over. And now we have to look at, you know, whoever was going to win this election, I said over and over again, was going to be in charge of the looting of what was left of America. You know, they were in charge of who was going to get paid in this, you know, this America going out of business sale. That's what we see now. You know, and I don't know when people will get there, you know, where I've been for a while now, is that there's no saving this system. People in the truth community don't really get it, and certainly people in the left-right paradigm, you know, oh, we put Trump back in, he'd fix it. No, he wouldn't. He didn't fix it the first time. He didn't stop anything. He made it worse, and they made it worse by using him against the American people, using Trump like a weapon to push a, you know, hyperized Hollywood liberal, you know, agenda that's been rolled out on all levels. And so Trump isn't going to save you, and certainly Biden isn't going to save you. There's no saving you. There's no saving your lifestyle. It's not you. You might survive, but your lifestyle is going to change. It's going to be worse, right? And they're going to have to sell that to you in one way or another. They're going to have to sell changing your lifestyle dramatically, because the American way of life is dead, right? The American dream is dead, and what you know as America is no longer exists. And, you know, it's just, they got to sell it to you. They got to make you accept it. And that's what JoJo is being used as was Trump. And they're going to push this thing through because they have no choice, because of the, you know, the system is insolvent. So they don't, you know, they can't, you know, no matter how you react or how you don't accept this, doesn't matter. You know, they can't fix it. They can't, you know, say, all right, you guys aren't going to accept it. Well, we'll just go back to the way it was. No, there's no that, right? That's not happening. And so the only refuge that people have is internalizing their existence instead of being completely dependent on materialism and a good time and material pleasures and distractions, all the lifestyle things we have now, as the focus of the focal point of your life. It has to change to a soul-driven existence where you're following your soul's path and you're connecting to God on a deeper level. That's why the heartfulness system of meditation has been given to humanity, to change their orientation from the material world to the internal world, to where you're now, driven by your soul's path and to succeed spiritually. You can't have the same materialistic success that people enjoyed our generations before, right? That's not going to be available for the youth of today. They're not going to have these material opportunities, and, it's actually a good thing because we've been completely one-sided in our focus, and that's what's brought down our civilization, disconnecting people from God. The religions have disconnected people from God, and the materialistic system has taken them completely in the other direction, where people are focused only on their egos and their materialistic pleasures. And so it's going to be a hard sell for people because most people just can't do it. They're disconnected from their souls. Their love bank is empty and they're just depleted and they're weak and they just can't handle another thing, right? It's I got to do something else. Nah, I'm barely making it, right? People are just hanging on by a thread. They're drained and lifeless, and the system has just sucked them dry of everything that's, innocent and pure about them, and, their love energy and all the rest of it. Spiritual vampired. They've been ghouled, right? And JoJo Magoo is the head ghoul. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely point for the apocalaughs and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.